मेरे अजीज हमवतनों, ठीक हो?
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह। तो अब अगला सेगमेंट और गेस्ट भी हमारे साथ इस वक्त जो है स्काइप लाइन पे जुड़ चुके हैं, तो बताइए हमारे साथ कौन जुड़ा है।
आज हैं हमारे साथ हैं डॉक्टर मार्क, हैं प्रोफेसर एट स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क मैरीटाइम कॉलेज, और इसके अलावा जो हैं लॉयर हैं और बड़ा हमसे प्यार दिखाते हैं और जो है हमें डांट भी देते हैं कभी कभी, बट वी स्टिल लव डॉक्टर मार्क, यू नो, अ लॉट. ही keeps on scolding me in between, but still. Hello Mark, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, Dr. Mark. It's such a lovely feeling to meet you. How are you, sir? It's been such a long time.
So far, so good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you are good, but you are making us bad over here. With all your tariffs coming our way. What's going on?
Well, we're on the Trump roller coaster.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
We just sit in the roller coaster. We put on the seat belt, and we just go for the ride. You know, up and down, up and down, up and down, and every day brings a new revelation, a new excitement, a new extraordinary challenge, and in every respect, both for our continent, but also for the world. So it's quite amazing and quite exciting, and we cannot really tell what the future will hold in store for us.
Dr. Mark, what is your understanding? Like you said that we are in roller coaster. One day Mr. Trump announces tariffs. The other day then he said that I am going to take those off from auto industry. Then now again he says I'm considering for putting these tariffs on the chip industry. So one day there is something else. The second day there is something else. So I mean, what's going on? The advisors around him, what are they advising him? What is going on there in the White House? I mean, we are really curious to know.
Well, I certainly am not in the White House, but I think what it is that he has a lot of competing advisors who are telling him many different things. And, he goes between advisors. In fact, he wants to have these kind of advisors who keep telling him all sorts of different things. That's very good. This was kind of, I think, what was said about Lincoln, and Lincoln had advisors, and he wanted to have competing ideas. But here, the problem, I think, is, notice that the Trump administration is only, I don't know, how many days in? I think we're around 100, not even 100 days in. We're in 2 months plus. Let's see, January, February, March, April. We're just a couple of months in. Look at all the things that are being tackled at the same time. I would say number one problem is distraction. It looks like the administration is constantly distracted by different issues. One of the issues that Trump seems to focus on, obviously, is immigration. Clearly, immigration. He focuses on that. He believes that's a very, very effective tool for his popularity. It helped him in his campaign. And, of course, the tariffs and trade. Now, I always thought that the main target of that was China, and that all the other tariffs were just out there to confuse. But as you say, it's hard to know. So I think that that's a problem, having competing advisors. But also, you have I think there's a real deep down conflict between an advisor like Elon Musk and the others in the White House. And you can really see that. You can really see that by when Musk speaks in the cabinet, how the cabinet members and advisors react to him. So everybody's trying to be ascendant. Everybody's trying to be Trump's number one go-to. And that becomes very confusing, I think. Because what they're doing is they're really not giving advice. They're basically following what he's saying. And they're all competing with each other to be the one who is the most loyal. And that's not the purpose of a presidential advisor, I don't think. Presidential advisors should be giving the president really strong advice, even negative advice, on the things that the president's doing. I don't think he's getting that.
Dr. Mark, there was a very interesting discussion that I see now in Western media, especially in the U.S. Press, that in the first term, Mr. Trump had perhaps some, I don't want to use this word, but maybe more saner minds who were calm, who were not so hyper. At the moment, the Trump cabinet members who are really around him are very, sort of egoistic and very, hyper people who have, are not really, maybe, again, I'm choosing my words very, very,
Yes.
sensitively, are not really, maybe molded for this kind of a business. So, what do you make out of that? Maybe that was a saner lot earlier when he came for the first time, and this one is more of a spoiled lot. Like?
Well, let's put it this way: when he came in the first term, he was the first term. He wasn't experienced. He didn't know anything about it, and he actually selected some very good people. Many of whom he fired. H.R. McMaster, who I know, who is one of the most brilliant foreign policy advisors. I'm sure he might have told the president some things he didn't want to hear, and he fired him. And John Bolton, as much as you say about John Bolton, whatever you disagree with him, is one of the most astute and brilliant foreign policy experts in the world, as is McMaster. He fired him. So in the beginning, he wasn't very experienced. But then after the first term, he had a couple of years to be getting up to speed, becoming more experienced. He had been president for 4 years. And then when he came in, I think he wanted to create a cabinet advisors who were very much loyal to him. Now, here's the thing that I think is important. And what you said was, I think, very insightful, very important. I think it was Coolidge, or President Coolidge, or maybe it was Harding, who said, the business of America is business. And in terms of Trump, if you look at some of his advisors, like Witkoff and Lutnick, Commerce Secretary Bessent, these are business people. And what he is doing with someone like Witkoff, which is interesting, is he's sending him around. He's now an ambassador, apparently. I didn't know that. But today they referred to him in the State Department press briefing as Ambassador Witkoff. He's essentially a businessman who worked with Trump and works on a lot of deals in the Middle East. So, and he's the one, and Tom Barrack, who's the ambassador now to Turkey, as designated, is a businessman who, I guess, worked with Trump, or Trump knows. So President Trump trusts business people to do the work of diplomacy. And in my humble opinion, that's not a good match, really. I don't think it works. Because if you send, and let's be very candid, you send an American businessman, and they're very smart people, and they make millions of dollars, they're very effective. Send them to South Asia. Send them to the Middle East. Send them to Asia. I mean, really, I think that skill set that they have from American business, I don't think it works in these turbulent areas, complex issues like, India and Pakistan, Middle East, Gaza, China. These are complicated issues. Russia, Ukraine. These are gigantically complicated issues in very complicated regions that require serious, deep diplomatic skill. Which is what we usually have seen in a State Department, a Secretary of State. Now, if you look, for example, at Secretary of State Rubio, I mean, I greatly respect him. He was a presidential candidate. He was a very effective senator, well-liked, stepped down from his seat, took this position, and essentially he is, and I'm sure, a backbencher. He's a backbencher. He sits on the bench. He sits on the front. He's a front bencher. He sits with Vance on the couch, but it's the advisors like Witkoff and Lutnick and Besant. Ambassador Witkoff is going off to Iran. He's going off to Middle East Gaza. He's going off to Russia. He's negotiating. I don't know the man. I don't know anything about him. But I can tell you this. To negotiate with Iran or to negotiate in the Middle East requires years of experience and years of training and years of diplomatic savvy, which is very different from the kind of skill that you have for business. There's nothing wrong with making, millions of dollars. Nothing wrong. It's fine. That's America, right? Capitalist system. But that skill of how you do that and make those business deals is not the way we hope that diplomacy is done. And this is why in many of these areas, the State Department would, people who are experienced in diplomacy would be designated as ambassadors, would be the negotiators. The kinds of people like secretaries of state would be doing this. And so far, he's been sending these are his friends and colleagues from the business world. Now, maybe we'll be proved wrong. Maybe this is the best effective way to do it. But if you have a Secretary of State like Marco Rubio, who is enormously talented individual, could have been our president, tremendous. Maybe he will be a president one day, tremendous. Sitting on a couch in a Oval Office and not being the center of attention, or, Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is, we've talked a lot about in the past Elon Musk. He's a phenomenon. And we've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And maybe what he does is effective. But at the same time, I question this kind of, system in utilizing these people. And I think the key is getting the results. And a lot of time, the results you get is done through diplomacy, to be very candid. And not through, business deals.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Mark.
I'm a corporate lawyer by background, and, doing deals is perfectly fine, but you have to have a certain savvy.
Absolutely, Dr. Mark. This is exactly what my question was, that are these people really, tailored, or they are made for these kind of, discussions, because all these discussions should be carried out by people in the Foreign Office who are trained for years and years and years for this kind of, talk at the table. So the world is really going berserk about these, appointees. I didn't want to use such harsh words for Mr. Witkoff, but I look at Mr. Witkoff. What is he doing in a complex situation like Middle East? He's not a diplomat. He doesn't have any history of diplomacy, and he's going there, and then he's going to talk to Russia also, and so this is very sad because US.
Add one point, if I might.
Because US has always been known for putting the right people at the right places. We have grown up reading about the histories of Fortune 500 companies in US, that they don't really hire people just like that, left, right, and center. They take so much of time to pick up one executive, but that one executive is an absolutely right fit for the right place. So looking at the administration itself going berserk like this, it's very, very astonishing. Yes, please go ahead and make your point.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let me just say this. There was a hearing in the Senate to approve the nominees for the ambassadorship of United Kingdom. That's very seriously important. Turkey, and I think it was also Italy. And it was interesting that when they asked the senators, and these are very sharp people, believe me, were asking the question of the nominee for the United Kingdom, what did he think about AUKUS? The agreement, and I don't think he was really familiar with it. And he said, I'll hear about it in the classified briefing. I think also, so the point I think I want to add to your very good explanation is that also these people have to be deeply knowledgeable in the regions, in the history, to know who you are dealing with. Okay, so
maybe they asked him a difficult question. They should have asked him the easier one. What is BRICS? AUKUS was maybe difficult. For
I
him.
mean,
It's laughable, honestly. I'm
I
so
mean,
sorry for that.
AUKUS, BRICS, SCL. You have to know this. This is if like you said about a business. If somebody came in to work in a corporation and they asked, well, "What about this particular product or what we produce?" and they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
The product is the diplomacy, and the region needs to be known, and they don't know it. I think this has been a failure in American foreign policy also, is that we have had all kinds of interactions with foreign countries, America's foreign, we interact with people that we don't even research to know what it's all about.
Yeah.
You can't just, the American way is we go like, no, I've been worked on many deals and many transactions. You sit down, you work it out, you sign a contract, you negotiate. But in parts of the world, like the Middle East and other parts of the world, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Dr. Mark,
How do you do a deal?
Yes, exactly. Dr. Mark, something very important. The two biggest powers at the moment are US and China. Why is there this constant rift with China? I mean, it is again unimaginable that the American business and economy is based so much on China. Why they have to retard, or why they have to cut that arm to hurt themselves just because they want to hurt China? Why can't they work like, why don't they brace it that, okay, fine, along with us China is now the big power, so let's work together, like their president Xi Jinping also said that these tariff wars are not really going to help, and your own President Reagan said this, that these tariffs, they ruin the competition in the world, and free market concepts, and they kill competitions. So what is this mindset?
Well, look, the problem with China is a very big problem, because China's approach to the United States is all wrong. And their approach, for example, their militarization of the South China Sea, their treatment of the Uyghurs, all the things that they do, and of course their constant, unending obsession with Taiwan, what they did with Hong Kong. And this is indicative, at least in the American mindset, of a great problem. It's not just trade that's the problem. Although, I think right now what the United States is doing, it's taking on China on trade to really push back China in general. I think that's what it is. I think, because, the United States is not in favor, and this is in every part of the world, of creating situations which will escalate into war. And what we have with China is an imbalance in the trade relationship. This is at least the way President Trump explains it. You're asking me about the mindset. The mindset is that China is deemed to be the most significant adversary of the United States. Admiral Davidson was testifying in the Congress and said that he expected, this was the head, the head of Indo-Pac, of the United States military in the region, was very worried about the potential for battle, war, conflict with China.
But China hasn't fought any war in the last 60 years.
Oh, I know you're right about that, but my point is that, let's suppose hypothetically that China tried to invade Taiwan. God forbid. What would happen? It's a big problem. They asked Biden this a couple of times, if you remember.
Why is that a problem for the U.S.? For example, even if they are dominating in South China Sea, or if they want to keep Hong Kong or this Taiwan, how does that hurt U.S. interests? Because on the other side, we see what's going on in what Israel is doing with Palestine. So shouldn't that be the focus of the U.S. at the moment, instead of pushing China to the wall?
You just gave me a gigantically complicated question. Okay.
Because you are the doctor. See?
Very good. Very good. Well, look, let's put it this way. South China Sea. Let's take it piece by piece. South China Sea, the United States supports open seas, freedom of the seas, and China opposes that. China's actions in the South China Sea, militarizing islands, creating islands out of rocks, trying to claim territorial waters, economic zones, particularly where they're not entitled under international law, is problematic. And also the countries in that region, like Vietnam, Philippines, etc., are looking to the United States for support. Now, so the United States sees that as a national interest. As far as Hong Kong is concerned, I mean, that to me presents a profound issue to the world in terms of the fact that China violated its agreement and commitment with the United Kingdom and what it would do with the Hong Kong after the night. They closed the deal, 99 lease. They closed the deal. They made a deal, but then they didn't follow through. And their detaining of dissidents and so forth is anathema to the American spirit of human rights and freedom. As far as Taiwan is concerned, that's a complicated issue. That's one where we have strategic ambiguity, where we don't basically say that we disagree with the one China policy, but at the same time, China has been, creating maneuvers, and the United States is upping and increasing its military and naval presence in the region, and there's a reason for that. Now, as far as China, I have to say, you make a good point. China hasn't fought a war, and I tell you that the United States Navy, United States military, is way ahead, not maybe numerically in ships, but way ahead of the Chinese military and Chinese naval, because they are, in my humble opinion, I think they are hindered by communism. Communism is not a system that's resilient. Their economy is shot. Their young people, I'm sure, are very unhappy. They have all kinds of internal issues.
But
so
isn't Mr. Trump making Americans very unhappy at the moment? He has just announced that he is going to freeze and defund a lot of universities, especially your elite universities, and then all these people he wants to deport. Any person who speaks against this genocide in Palestine, they want to deport that person. So where is your freedom of speech? Where is your Charter of Rights? Where is that USA we used to look towards when we were young growing up? Freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Everybody had that democracy within the decent realms. They could express themselves. Now they just simply can't.
So there I would answer you by saying that the courts in this country have been very careful and have overturned many things that these executive orders have provided for. We have checks and balances.
Yeah.
And our system, even judges who are appointed by Trump. Now, I don't want to avoid talking about the Middle East because that's important to talk about. And the universities. I mean, in my opinion, and that's only my personal, everything I say is my own personal opinion, I think that freedom of speech is absolutely sacred. But freedom of speech is not licensed to obstruct people's freedom of movement, and to interrupt and to obstruct the operations of the universities. Now, if people want to stand there and talk, they can talk just like they do in Hyde Park. Beautiful. Nobody's against that. The problem is, and this is the allegation that the people involved here were involved in attacking buildings at Columbia. And when you say elite university, I'd like to know the meaning of the word elite university. I never attended an Ivy League school, and maybe that makes deficient in my education. I feel I'm very educated. I have a law degree, a PhD. I don't feel any deficiency, but when you say elite, to me, elite means the pursuit of fairness and morality, and not tolerating behavior on a campus where agitators come in and disrupt the campus. That's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, as you said, I grew up just like you, respecting, I think, the First Amendment. is one of the great things in our Bill of Rights. Yes, absolutely. And I visited England and saw Hyde Park. People stand there and talk. Maybe they used to. I don't know if to the same extent. That's a great thing. But when it turns into action and it turns into obstruction and agitation and violence and physical behavior, that to me, that in my humble opinion is not shouldn't be covered by just speech. Speech is fine. People say whatever you want, write things, beautiful. But when you start creating interference with other students being able to go to class, I hope you agree with me, that is should not be acceptable. So the word elite is maybe not applicable anymore to some of these colleges. Maybe their administrators are unable to carry out these high ideals that you referred to.
Okay, all right. So the policy in Middle East, what about that,
Yes.
Dr. Mark? We just have one minute now. We just have about 1 minute. Yeah.
The policy in the Middle East is very complicated, and I think that, clearly there needs to be peace in the Middle East and a solution to the problem, obviously, the suffering of the people in Gaza. But I don't know how to say this, but why not return the hostages and let them go home instead of keeping them in dungeons and starving them and murdering them? I think everybody is puzzled that I talk to, and we can't understand this. It's illogical to expect that any state would allow their people to be taken and suffered and persecuted and murdered and not returned. And that is what all international institutions have insisted upon. And so this is engendered, and the United States policy on this clearly is that Hamas started it, and they could end it in 5 minutes. Right now, they'd end it in 5 minutes and return the hostages, but they don't. They don't.
Dr. Mark, they did not start it. They did not. The problem started 60 years back when there was only Palestine, there was no Israel, and then Jews started coming in, then they started setting up their businesses, and then slowly and steadily they started grabbing the Palestinian land. So that is the problem. That started 60 years back. It did not start on October the 7th as is being highlighted in the European Union. That's not the thing. That's not very fair. You as Americans fought against the British Empire. You wanted we in India, we were living in the Indian subcontinent, we fought against the Indian imperial. Every country in the world, whether they were in East, they were the Ottoman Empire, they were in Africa, they fought against the imperialistic powers. So Israel is, encroaching on the land of Palestine. This was Palestine. It was their country. So, we really need to look at the, root cause of the problem. That's not it. This 7th of October that is being highlighted in Western media. And now the ceasefire was also accepted by Israel. So they violated it. And they have started killing innocent civilians. So, I don't really understand how the modern world or European Union or the US itself, because I look at US as the champion of freedom and democracy and fair play. So why are these double standards? We are very much afraid of China and Hong Kong and Vietnam, and China is, pushing people to the wall, but we are absolutely giving a free license to kill to Israel. Why is that?
Well, my answer to you is that if this is the end of the discussion, you didn't give me a lot of time to discuss the most complicated question that you raised.
No, sir, you can take then. Please take some time then.
I disagree completely with what you said in your characterization. With all respect, I do respect you. I think you are a very astute and sincere and very enthusiastic and very astute, very well expressed. But I don't agree with that, because I think that my understanding of the history is very different than that. And history can be interpreted, I teach history, can be interpreted in many different ways. So I look at it very differently. And I don't see that description is accurate. But since we don't have a lot of time to go through it, and without going back to the history of the Middle East, because I taught Middle East politics, I've taught Arab-Israeli conflict, I teach international relations, we can't finish this one in just a few minutes. But to me, however you look at the Middle East, and clearly it's a hugely complex problem, but at the same time, how do you defend October 7th? That's indefensible. You cannot defend it. Is indefensible. Why do we focus on it? Because of the incredible atrocity committed on that day. And understand that from the point of view of how Israelis look at it and how the Hamas terrorists, and they are terrorists, attacked a music festival. And again, I understand your point. You say it can't be divorced from the history. I get that. But October 7th is a pivotal event in the history of the world. And after October 7th, in my humble opinion, however it engendered, could have been finished in a moment. And this is the position of the foreign policy of the United States, as expressed by the State Department, is that Hamas is at fault for that, and that they should return the hostages. They don't do that, and if they don't return the hostages, then they're creating a situation which is absolutely untenable. I totally agree with you. It's an impossible, horrible situation. No question about it. And it needs to be solved. But it doesn't get solved if what you do is, have, a mother with babies. President Trump talked about this. And then, you murder babies, baby hostages. I mean, this is beneath human behavior. It's inhuman. And so they just return the hostages. And then we have a peace agreement or something. But as long as the hostages are in those dungeons and they're suffering and starving, how can any society think normally and think sanely about what's going on there? And that's the problem. And the Middle East, I think you would agree, is a region which is deeply complicated, and it's complicated historically. Yes, you're right. And that's one that you can't easily unwind and figure out. It has big, big complexities. Yet, at the same time, President Trump was able in his first term to negotiate the Abraham Accords with a number of Arab countries. And maybe Saudi Arabia will come on board with that. I mean, what's the choice? Is the choice constant, endless violence, or perhaps working out an agreement with these countries to live in peace? I think that, to me, is very advantageous.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mark. Absolutely, you're right. But the thing is that Hamas has just announced, just today itself, they have announced that they are ready to return all the hostages if at all Israel decides for a complete ceasefire. Israel wants all the captives back, but only for a 45-day temporary ceasefire. So, I mean, and they want Hamas to lay down their arms as well. So, definitely the deals is off the table once again. Dr. Mark, thank you very, very much for your very kind comments. It was very insightful discussion with you. We are going to carry out some more on this complex issue. And of course, next time we are also going to touch the Ukrainian issue as well. Yes. And we definitely want to take advantage of your, expertise in international relations. Absolute pleasure talking to you always. Thank you very much.
I wish peace for the world.
Yes, absolutely.
I know you agree with me on that 100%.
200%. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mark. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
ये थे हमारे साथ डॉक्टर मार्क और उनसे